Welcome to the Ride and Laugh podcast, episode number 2. I'm Dan. I'm here with my buddy Sage. We want you to take a second and think back to the last group ride that you were on. That was just so much fun, so stoked afterwards. Maybe you cleared some tech that you've been working on. Maybe you got a little further on that skinny. Maybe you got to the top of a climb, or maybe you cleared a jump. And you're just stoked, a new drop, you're stoked, you're back at the parking lot, you're at the brewery, you're at the diner, you're talking to your friends, and the stoke is high, and everyone's having a great time, and you're talking bikes. That's what we're doing right here, right now. Let's drop in. Sage, how you doing?
Man, I am doing so much better than the last time that we talked. Back is feeling good. I went for a ride. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Still wintertime here. So we're kind of drudging through, but our local Mount Penn in Reading, our local trails have an all rock, all torture section. We can just stay on the rocks. They stay dry. It can rain before and after, but those rocks stay dry enough to ride. And so we got a ride in last week, and that was awesome. That brought me back to life a little bit. And
by awesome, I think you mean brutal.
Yeah. Well, you climb 1,000 feet and it's all tech in over an hour, and you're just completely wasted, but also feels really good.
Yeah, grateful that we have like a place like that that's rideable in these kind of conditions. I mean, I know a lot of people, we can't be the only ones that have freestyle. That's a massive issue, but having a place like Mount Penn where freestyle is really not if you are staying off the machine built trails, freestyle is really not an issue, but man, it makes for a ridiculously tough ride. You're working the whole time.
I would say every other place around here that I know of has freestyle. I mean, or just doesn't drain well enough to ride like that. I've never seen a place like this before. I know some of our New Jersey friends have some sandy spots that drain really well. And I'm sure other parts of the country have trails that drain really well, or you could just live in the Southwest where it doesn't rain and you just don't have to worry about it. But
they don't believe in freestyle.
Yeah. We do know of some people that said that they don't believe in freestyle. I didn't know that was up for debate. I'd like to not believe in it. I've seen otherwise. I've been shown the light and it's muddy. Well, what I wanted to get into today, I thought our last conversation about instinctive riding versus method riding and how to get into a flow state, I think that's certainly worth getting into a little bit more. I know we both have some more input into that, and it's something that we've struggled with, continue to struggle with, and but have also found some really useful and handy hacks to get around some of those kind of those tricks that our brain plays on us to get into that flow state. So I thought I would start it in the sense of you're in that ride, maybe a quarter of the way in, something happens, you clip a pedal, and you fall, and now the rest of the ride's like in jeopardy because the confidence is just gone. What would you do, or what would you recommend if you're riding with someone and you see that happen and then you see them struggling or you're struggling? What do you say in that case?
Wow, Danny, I mean, I feel like actually it's pretty pertinent to the time of year that we're riding right now because of freestyle, you are going to come across features where your tire is going to be still wet and you do go down. You do go down and it hurts. And depending on how bad the fall is and where you fell, it can have a pretty big effect on the rest of your ride. I know that you and I have both experienced that where we've kind of gone down early in the ride. And if you're lucky, you can pull yourself back together and kind of rescue the ride, so to say. But what are the things? I think let's start by saying that the most important thing is if you're the buddy, don't put the pressure, right? And I am guilty of this a lot. I tend to put pressure where there doesn't need to be pressure on myself, but also on my friends. And we got to watch out for that because we do want to be stoked for each other. But if someone goes down, it's the timeline is up to them, right?
Yeah, or if they're just not even feeling it, you know, but your friends will drop a hint. Something that I've noticed that you are very bad at picking up on. We'll drop hints, you know, like, yeah, you know, I didn't sleep all that well, or, you know, my head's not in it. And then Sage doesn't need a warm up. So this dude just jumps. I mean, physically, I don't think he needs a warm up for climbs or anything like that either. Nope. He just jumps right into it. But for tech, like he'll start at a small feature for the people riding with him. But if it was up to you, dude, you would just jump right into the hardest thing. Like you don't warm up. You don't need. But I think the 99% rest of us want to like build up to it. So I you know, absolutely. If you're the riding friend and your buddy goes down, and then they're doing, you know, and they're riding around stuff. I mean, I think the name of the game is just encouragement, you know, and acceptance. Like we're out here to have fun, you know. No one's keeping score.
Yeah,
you know, we're out here to have fun, and the confidence will come back, and you'll get it when you're ready.
So, is there something that you can do to jumpstart that confidence? You know, like if you did go down, assuming it's not a serious injury, obviously a serious injury, you know, call it a day. But if it's something that you can continue to ride, are there tips that you can rely on to get that confidence bulb rolling again?
Yeah. Well, I think there probably are, and there's a lot of different. There's a lot of different scenarios. So, you know, if you hit your knee and it's a lingering pain and you keep feeling it, yeah, that might take you out for the day, you know, just because you keep noticing it. And, you know, I really don't want to go down on this thing again. And so you're just going to take it easy. If you're doing challenging tech, I think is what we're talking about. If you're doing cross country, then just keep riding, but you still are going to you're still going to want to be in that good form and staying out of your head. So that it's kind of that lizard brain that we've talked about before, right? Where the survival brain kicks in, and it's a primordial part of ourselves. You know, I do not want to get hurt. I don't want to die, you know, and this hurts, so let's not do this again. But the mountain bike part of you is like, no, that's what I came here to do, man. Like I want to do that stuff, you know. So you have this kind of like this battle between primordial survival, which you want to turn off. The survival brain would never have us doing any of the things we're doing on a mountain bike. These are terrible ideas for survival. It would be much safer to skip the mountain biking and just go right to the brewery. That would be much safer in some senses, you know, in a physical sense, in a primordial sense. So yeah, I think you're taking deep breaths. I know that you have it. I've seen you do that where you exhale all the way, and you know, something to reground your body and get rid of all those chemicals that are now coursing through your body that are like fear. And when I fall and I start riding again, a lot of times I'm just angry. I'm annoyed. I'm pissed that happened.
Yes.
Right. And so you have to dissipate that emotion also. You have to breathe through, and it's just like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. And then, you know, get to a spot where your skills can take over again. So what would you recommend? It's a tough one.
Well, it is a tough one. And unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with personality too. You know, are you the type of person that, I mean, you hear this phrase in football all the time. It's just like, you know, where they're able to have short-term memory, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I do think I don't know that that's a learned thing. I think that's something that, you know, if you're able to access that, like truly just forget, that's pretty cool. I'm not like that. I can't, if I fall pretty hard, it tends to ruin my ride. I know that, about 2 weeks ago, I had a pretty rough ride. I didn't actually fall, but I kept making mistakes, like over and over and over. I would just make the silliest mistakes. If there was a rock, I would find it, you know, and it just, I could not get into that flow state.
Yeah.
And the harder I tried, the worse it got. You know, it was almost like, and again, I think this comes back to that instinctual versus method. You know, for me, being an instinctual rider and then suddenly having to like, oh, I'm hitting these rocks, and now I'm thinking about the rocks, and now I'm looking at the rocks, and like it is absolute the worst case scenario for someone like me, where I'm now having to think about things. It just takes me out of my game. I don't know that I actually pulled myself out of that ride. I think it ended up being just one of those days where you're just like, yeah, nothing went right. Still great ride, but nothing went right.
But it didn't snowball into the next ride.
No, it did not. Thank God. Yeah. I guess I don't have short-term memory, but it doesn't, I don't hold on to, to those things either.
A little compassion towards yourself and just like kind of let it go and just chalk it up to one of those days. It happens. And I think if it's happening, mid-ride, even if you didn't fall, you just kind of like, you're just having a day where you're just kind of not getting what you want, is going back to those, maybe those cue words, in my case, those words that would get me into a flow state of just like, okay, just trust the skills, flow, eyes up, just some of these very, very basic kind of, weight in the bottom bracket, just some of these very, very basic instructional things, just to kind of keep your mind off of what, the panic of the fall or of not riding well, and try to kind of kickstart your, your intuitive riding sense. Because I think the overthinker, when we fall, the overthinker comes out like turbocharged. And so what we're always trying to do is get back to that intuitive thinker, to be able to turn off that lizard brain of survival and go back to, I actually am pretty good at this, and I know how to do this, and I have a nice bike, and I trust it, and I trust my skills, and, to trying to return to that intuitive riding. And I think that's where you could start to build up slowly again. Let me go do something that I know that I have confidence in, that I feel good about.
Yeah.
And you start to get those little those little wins, right? We talk about that all the time. Just starting to stack wins, and then
that's right.
Then the wins get sometimes we're stacking from from beginner to intermediate, and then we've had trips that we're on, and other times when we're riding where we're starting to stack like expert to pro level wins. So it's all about momentum, but you got to start where you are.
Yeah. I forgot about that saying, but we do say that all the time, the stack the wins, and that really does make a huge difference. Especially when you're at a bike park and you're able to like get those consecutive runs, talk about stacking wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when we were at, Blue Mountain, which is in Palmerton, Pennsylvania. And there's this huge jump line there, Upper Empire. And I just remember you just went for it. You just went. All I saw was like you flying in the air, followed by like this giant woohoo. And then once you cleared that first one, I mean, there's about 6 on that line, and you just cleared all of them. It was just like once you had that one win, that was the confidence that you needed for the rest of them. And I think these are pro level. I mean, they are big jumps.
Yeah, they're pretty big. I know there's bigger out there. They're building some really big stuff in the Northeast, and that's awesome. But I remember when we first rode over them, and we literally just like rode up to the top and then rode over these tabletops, and I was just like, these are humongous. They were way bigger than anything I'd ever seen. And then I had just been telling myself, I'm a good jumper. I could do this. I had been envisioning that. We talked about that last week, but it's so key. I'd been envisioning clearing these jumps, or clearing jumps just in general. I don't think we had ever seen these before. So it was just, I was just telling myself, I'm a good jumper. I'm a good jumper. I wasn't. I was just saying it. I mean, I was just faking it till I make it, I remember driving to work and just saying, I'm a good jumper. I'm good at jumping mountain bikes. And so then as I'm approaching these jumps, like all of a sudden it just clicked in my mind, like, yeah, I'm good at this. I got it. And I did. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't perfect at spotting the landing on each one. I had the speed off a little bit. I was casing them. But I was getting a lot of them, and out of nowhere, it's actually in your video where you're behind me and you're like, look at Danny go. Like, what? Yeah. How did this happen? And I couldn't believe it either, but I had been envisioning it. And then, I just started to realize, I started to trust, like, oh, these 2 jumps are trail speed. These ones you actually need to pedal into, and you start to kind of like dial in building those wins. So once I started to get a couple of them, it was like, well, now I want to send more and more. And jumping is really addictive like that. We can get more into the whole jumping thing is probably 3 or 4 episodes on itself. But yeah, that was a cool moment. And that is a good example of stacking wins. I also thought about when we were in Tucson on 50-year trail and we were doing all those slabs. And this is a situation, this was a case where you were leading me in and you were doing all of the slabs first. You were really comfortable and then telling me that I could do them. And we were just like stacking wins. And they just got harder and harder and more intense. And we got them all. I think we did just about everything on that, in that system that we wanted to. And we were stacking some wins. That was a really, really fun day. So it can go from the bad day to better and the good day to great.
Yeah. And that whole Arizona trip, just going back to what we started the conversation with, which is you had a pretty hard fall on Sunset Ridge, which is a pro line, right? I think it's pro line.
Yeah, it's a double black.
It's a double black, and poor Danny. You went down hard. Your front tire washed out, and that was day 2. And so we
absolutely ate it. Yes. Yeah. I was wearing a GoPro. There's footage of it. It's on the Sunset Ridge Trail Sage video if you want to look it up, which is it's an awesome trail and it's a good video. But I absolutely ate it, and I was wearing a GoPro for Sage's channel and broke the mount and everything. I'm surprised I didn't break more on that bike, but yeah, I was pretty banged up after that. That was hard.
Yeah, you were. And so just to bring that back to like 50 year, which was like the next day, your head wasn't quite ready to be, because these slabs were pretty intense. And I do remember feeling really strong that trip. And we kind of had a little role reversal, and I was leading you through the slabs. But once you got one, man, we just started stacking wins, and then you just started getting more confident. I mean, by the end of that you were right back to good old Danny.
Yeah, that was an awesome trail. And that was, I mean, it's so cool riding with a friend and being able to support each other. And I mean, that's what this podcast is about. It's about the mountain bike community and riding with your buddies. And even if you're riding solo, having the tips. And but I mean, I'd be careful about how dangerous of things you get when you're solo. But but having all these tips to get yourself centered. I know having the proper technique, getting back into your technique and practicing your technique, having the strength to do that, so whatever type of training that you're doing, but being able to stay hip hinged and keep your elbows bent and stay in that position is going to set you up for success. And it's going to make you more confident as you start to flow over things. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I do have this, so it's practicing those skills and practicing that hip hinge, whether it be like on a pump track, which is awesome if you can do it, or a rip row. But even just being strong, a rip row is it's like a hip hinge. It's like a rowing machine that Liam Cormack made, that's made specifically to train kind of like the downhill mountain bike position. I have one, and it's awesome. But also just weight training. Getting a strong core and those sorts of things. And, but being able to lock into that correct position. What do you think about that?
Man, I'm a little embarrassed, but like, I don't do any of that stuff. Like
I'm embarrassed. Crazy. I have to do all of that stuff and you don't. What time I spend doing that stuff, and you're still a better rider than me.
No. I probably should train flexibility and all of those things. But yeah, I for me, a lot of that stuff just comes naturally. I was thinking about this last night, and I was thinking about it in terms of basketball. And it was like, we talked about like instinctual versus method, right? And like, I remember distinctively picking up a basketball when I was a young boy. I had to like literally think about the basketball and pushing it against the ground and focusing on just using my fingers, not the palm, but pushing with your fingers, pushing the ball into the ground. And then it was like, okay, let me introduce my left hand, and now I'm like, and I'm literally watching the ball hit the ground and into my hand. That is where the level was, and I did that for a week, just back and forth between the hands. And then, let's work on a layup, and now you're working on that. But the whole time I'm literally thinking about like, okay, left, right. And I'm saying this. Well, now I'm 40 some odd years old, right? I'm 46. I don't think about any of that. When I play basketball, I'm just dribbling. It's just instinctual. When I go to take a layup, I don't have to like think about, oh, wait, am I going to end up on my takeoff foot or am I going to lay up?
Yeah.
Strangely enough, if I try and do a layup with my left, I do have to think about it. I have to go back to being a method basketball player. And I have to actually literally talk myself through, wait, is this going to get me on the right takeoff foot? So how does that relate to mountain biking? Well, when I go to mountain bike, it's so instinctual that I don't find myself talking myself through those steps. I just kind of let my body do what it's supposed to do. And I think that's where I do feel like I have a small advantage or maybe it's a big advantage, especially when we're riding places blind, when I'm haven't been to a place ever before, I'm still able to go at a pretty fast clip. So yeah, I think that is a pretty big advantage.
You've always been so instinctual and just so balanced. I mean, from when we started, and we used to ride with a group of probably a pretty regular group of 7 or 8 guys, and you were always the fastest on the downhills. When we're talking about hardtails and everything, but we were all riding hardtails. So
yeah,
but you were always the fastest on the downhills, and you were just looking for someone to keep up with you. I remember you would try to recruit each one of us to be like your downhill. Oh, you're my downhill buddy. Like, no, I'm not. And I remember I would ask you questions like, how much are you turning your hips and how much are you dropping your outside pedal? And you would think about it. And then you would, you would let me know, but it wasn't something that you had like read about or were using some sort of technique. You just got on the bike and you're just loose. I think that's so much of it. It's just being loose.
Yeah.
I even look at the videos. Like I get low. I get low. I don't feel like you're that low. I feel like you're kind of upright. And then when there's a move needed, then you get low. You get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tend to move unnecessarily on my bike a lot. So that's probably one of the things, I'm always throwing in like unnecessary
in there.
Yeah, but I do move around a lot on the bike. But for me, I find that to be like really exciting and fun, to just kind of like really move your body, get into it. And that means not always being low, sometimes, especially because I'm a shorter guy, sometimes it means I have to be, a little bit higher up and stand a little bit higher up on my pedals. But I also like being high up and then dropping down into that low position. And that kind of gives you a pumping effect. If you're low the whole time, then you can't pump the trail it becomes infinitely harder to do so. So yeah, again, comes down to personality. My bike has a lot to do with that too. It's a very short bike, it's not like a slacked out bike. So having a shorter bike also lends itself to more playful behavior on the trail as well. I just find myself like jumping off of things or kicking off of things or really dipping into the turns. But yeah, I do remember you asking me questions about, what I do, in this scenario or, what did you do on that turn? And I'm just like, I don't know. I would literally have to think about what it was that I was doing.
Yeah, and I would read a tip in the magazine and then be like trying to use it the whole ride, or like I'll suddenly remember a tip halfway through a ride and be like, oh yeah, I should be doing that, and you just do it. I'm jealous of that. I just think that's awesome. But it all comes down to being able to get into your comfort zone, to be able to clear your mind. And what that's deep breaths, that might be a mantra, but being able to get into those skills that you have and being able to trust them and building up that trust for yourself. Each ride, starting small and then building up. And someone like yourself, who I think is unique, maybe doesn't need to start as small, but certainly if you are having a bad day, then start stacking smaller wins together. and, get yourself back stake, get yourself back in the moment. So you're not thinking about that fall. How many parks do we have where you ride by a feature and you're like, I fell there 4 years ago. I remember every spot that I fell, and every time that you get back there, it's a big deal. It's a big deal until you start getting over it again, where you're just like, okay, it's no big deal anymore. I mean, Wissahickon, which is the big Philly in-city park. I broke my hand there. I degloved my thigh there. I used to ride there every week, and I've had some big crashes there, probably because I used to ride there so much that I would actually stop paying attention on some of these rides, and they were huge solo rides. Wow, which is a different conversation. That was probably.
And when I first met you hurt yourself. You hurt your shoulder. It was our very first ride together.
Yes. It was a prelude of things to come. Like, sure you want to be friends with this dude? Because 15 years from now, you're going to break his face and you're going to be in the hospital with him for 6 days.
Who knew?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, but being able to go back to those skills, being able to enter back into the flow state, being able to trust your skills, get low, wait in the bottom bracket, eyes up, and start to feel the flow again, or if it's the beginning of the ride, just start to feel it and have that confidence build up, and then the stoke builds up, and then you're ready to try some more and more stuff. So I think that's awesome. I think that's where, mountain biking is so much fun, is the progression. And even if it meant you went a little bit backwards and, something that you've done 7 or 8 times, and all of a sudden you're scared to do it because you fell on it in the rain. That happened to me. And then it's a big deal again. And but some of these things are a big deal, no matter what. They're always a big deal.
Yeah. I do have a few tips for riding blind. Because I was thinking about that a lot too. And it was like, there are a few things that I do when I get to that's funny. That I do when I get to a place that I've never ridden before. And the very first thing that I do is I actually check the traction, like right off the bat.
Yeah, you do.
I will rail a turn or drag a brake or whatever. That first 10 minutes, I'm really driving the bike into the ground and just kind of testing the limit of what that terrain is. And some places, like I think Vietnam in Connecticut Massachusetts. That was Massachusetts?
Vietnam is Massachusetts.
Yeah. That place
Milford
had dirt and big rocks. And so it took me a little bit more longer to test it all out, but the dirt had a different traction than the rocks. And so the first rock that I got onto, same thing. I'm dragging the brake, testing my tire tread on that rock, and that all that input's going into the brain, and I'm able to use that and rely on that knowledge for the rest of the ride. So I don't worry about, is this rock going to hold me? I know it's going to hold me. I've tested it all. So that first 10 minutes, I do that. The other thing that I'll do is in that first 10 or 20 minutes, I'm trying to take note of what the builders are doing, and so that becomes a trust level. And again, I don't want to put too much emphasis on this, because if someone got hurt doing this technique, I would feel terrible. But I'm looking at, if there's a small drop, was there a landing, and was the landing appropriately built? If I get to that first drop and the landing was not appropriately built, okay, that's a pretty big sign that, hey, if you're going trail speed, maybe you don't trust these drops, maybe you don't trust these jumps. But if they are built right, I'm more inclined to just kind of let it go and send it.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Right?
Yeah, I've never heard you say that before. I mean, I've heard you say it when we're riding places, like, these trails are built really well and I'm trusting it. But I never heard you put it into words like that, where I'm actually paying attention. Oh, all these hucks are flat. There are no buildups. So if anything big, I'm going to look at it. Versus everything feels really good here, and let's just ride, let's just flow. Yeah, big difference.
Yeah. Berm's another one, right? If you're someone that struggles in turns, knowing that a trail builder knows how to build a berm correctly to trail speed and being able to trust that. I mean, we got one at Mount Penn that, I mean,
Gravel
is
berm?
horrendous. Yeah, it's a fake berm.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. And so
it
if
looks
you
like a berm.
acts
Not
like
a
a berm. No, it does not act like a
Smells like a berm, not a berm.
not a berm. Yeah. Are there tricks that you do when you get to a place for the first time?
No, I haven't really thought of it like that. I guess no, I guess I do that in a sense, bumbling through this. I guess I do that in a sense, in that you start to just get a feel for how everything's built. And, you start to get the feel for, does everything have a roll down, or, some of these are drops. They're not rolls. So, sometimes you get to a place and you can drop stuff, but everything's rollable. And that gives you a level of confidence that if you slow down on it a little bit, you can roll. And then there's other places where that you're going to have to huck it. And new trails are super fun, but can be frustrating also when you don't know the lines, and especially like a place that has alternative lines. I know at Blue Mountain Reserve, like we were kind of like, whoever's in front would notice and point to the side. Oh, that's rideable. That's rideable. That's rideable. That's rideable. But you're already past it, and that was a big ride. We weren't going back and doing every little feature. So yeah, that sort of stuff. But that's why it's always good to ride with a local too, right? If you know someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually that brought up another one, right? And we talk about it, right? But talking about it and actually putting it into practice, but like getting your eyes up when you're riding blind, that's not just like something you say. You got to live by that. I mean, when I'm going fast and I'm riding blind, I'm looking 20, 25, 30 feet ahead. Like it's exorbitant how like far ahead I'm looking. But it really makes a huge difference. If you're sitting there staring down at your front tire, I mean, the success rate is going to be.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No. If you look down, I mean, if you're in a car and you look out the window and you look down at the street, it's going by like super fast. But if you look up, your brain has plenty of time to process things. And we were going to get into that a little bit. We're going to have our mountain bike tip of the week, and it was going to be about where to keep your eyes and keeping those eyes up. So it's cool that we're getting into it right now. I actually think that when you're riding a new place, new trails, I think it's easier to keep your eyes up because you have no idea what's coming. So you have to.
Okay.
Whereas I think when you ride your local trails all the time, it's easy to let your mind kind of wander and start looking down or just feeling the pain and knowing like, this is a long climb, and almost kind of not be as locked in. I think maybe riding new place, you have no choice. If you don't get your eyes up, you're going to be stopping all the time.
Man, that's a really, really good point. I'm trying to like think back to like all my big injuries. Were they at like our local spots, or are they at new places? And you're right. Some of my biggest injuries were places that I've ridden many times.
All mine are. Well, except for Powder Ridge. Yeah.
Well, wow, that was your biggest one too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe your worst crash isn't always your worst injury, right?
Mm.
I mean, how many times we may have even walked away from our worst crash, but whereas like, my injury at Powder Ridge was not my worst crash, but it was because of the way I landed. It was my worst injury. When I broke my hand, I clipped a tree. That wasn't my worst crash, but I Supermaned into the ground. And when I landed, I broke my hand. This is many, many years ago. But I've had way worse crashes. In fact, the crash on the slab in the rain on that rainy day at Mount Penn, and we have slow motion pictures of it, I think, was way worse. And I completely walked away from that. I broke my bike, but I completely walked away from that. That was probably my worst crash. I mean, that was really scary.
Yeah, so, that was Sam Malone, right? Sam Malone at Mount Penn.
The slab that we call Sam Malone. Yeah, there's a section at Mount Penn where it's got a ton of like pretty scary downhill skinnies and different types of skinnies and just old school free ride tech and slabs. And one of those is it's in many Mount Penn. It's in many Trail Stage videos where he's at Mount Penn. But it's like you're kind of like riding along the ledge of this rock that is like falls off a cliff, and we named it Cliff Clavin, which is the character from Cheers, which is a show, a sitcom from the '90s. In case you're younger and you're watching this, it's very funny. So then we started naming all these other characters from Cheers, and so that's why that one slab is called Sam Malone, and it's probably one of our favorites because it's probably a 7 out of 10. Like, it's really steep. It's a full commit. It's kind of got like a gnarly entrance, but it's very doable. I mean, it doesn't have like a crazy transition or a crazy move in it. So we, I feel like we hit that one often, but that's also one that I've been scared of in the past. I was going to get back to when we start to get into our flow on the trails. And we talked about this a little bit last week with instinctive riding and your ability to turn your mind off when you're riding, but you can't do that necessarily in your life. Yeah. And how cool it would be. So when we just like on the trail, when we start to build that repetition of success and that flow and that trust and that I got this kind of mentality, I got this. We take that to our life. You're trusting your skills, but this time in life, I got this, and being able to turn those thoughts off. That have a confidence in what you're doing, whatever it may be, and know that life supports you, and I got this, and everything's going to be okay so long as I have, good intentions, and I feel like I'm doing the right thing, and I'm following my intuition, staying in the moment. If you're riding and there's a feature on the trail that you're on that has been hard for you, or that you've fallen on in the past, or that you're nervous about, and you could spend the whole ride thinking about that feature before you get to it, and talk about staying out of the flow, right? Oh, I got this. This is coming up. This drop's coming up. This drop's coming up. This drop's coming up. I'm nervous about this. I'm nervous, and now you're not enjoying the ride. And the same thing happens in life. Right. Same thing happens in life. We're thinking about the next feature in life, the next thing we need to do, and we're missing right now. So yeah. I just love the connection between mountain biking and life, getting in that flow state, trusting our skills, and then going with the flow on the trail and going with the flow in life. Let's take that to our everyday. I got this.
I find that lately, I'm going through a lot of personal things, but really heavy personal things. And the part that's probably the most difficult for me is I need the ride to be good. And when I have these heavy thoughts going through my brain, the ride oftentimes is terrible. And it's like this terrible cycle of like, I need this to be good. I'm trying to live in the moment, but the moment is like really crappy. Like we talked about it actually full circle. We started this video talking about those bad days that you have. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like I'm going through these rides and my front tire just seems to be finding every rut, every rock. And I'm just like, man, I just really need this to be a good ride. I was looking forward to this so much. And that's tough. That's really hard to kind of like put a positive spin on that. You know what I mean? When it's got a double meaning to it, it's not just bad ride, but it's also like, all this heavy stuff weighing you down.
Well, ultimately you're looking for something outside of yourself to make you happy.
Yeah.
And it's got to come from inside. Like, you've got to be cool with yourself. You got to be, so ultimately, like, if you're looking, whether it be a car, right, or a new bike, whatever it is, like, we need to find joy within ourselves. And that's being confident and going with the flow in our lives. And I think doing something that we're passionate about. That's one of the reasons we started this podcast. You do Trail Stage, your videos, and they're awesome. And you're passionate about it. I work a regular job and I want to do something in mountain biking. I want to do something, and I'm passionate about mountain biking. My regular job, but mountain biking I love. So that's why I'm excited to be doing this. Now, I mean, not everyone can start doing something that they're passionate about in their lives, but I think if you can like veer towards that a little bit, you should. I think following passion is showing you a little bit of your life purpose. And so if we're looking for happiness, like if we're looking for something else to give us happiness, like we have to find that in ourselves first. And that's what, we talk about the mountain bike gratitude of the week, and I'm big into the gratitude thing. I think writing down a few things that you have gratitude for, simple, every morning, every evening. I think it's a great practice, but that's something you could do just when you're riding. I haven't tried this, but I was just listening to a different podcast about it, or a mindfulness podcast, and they were talking about like getting out of negative thoughts, and one was like just smile, because your body doesn't know if you're smiling. Your body doesn't know if you're happy or not. It just assumes that you are. So maybe if we're on the bike, we can just start smiling, even though we just like jam the handlebars into our groin. Let's be messed up a rock feature. The other one is just to like start listing things that you have gratitude for. Oh, this bike, these trails, I love these shoes. I'm out here with my friends. And we do that sometimes. And I think we do pick each other up sometimes when the other guy's struggling, and it's just like, yo, dude, that's cool. Don't worry about it. It's fine if you want to ride around everything. Like, let's get a good workout in, and let's just have fun. And so I think there's a little bit of, and let's just appreciate that we're out here together, right? If you're out there with friends and you got a couple hours to not be at your regular life and be doing what we love to do, we got to grab that by the horns and appreciate it. So maybe bringing in some gratitude. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think. rideandlaugh1@gmail. Absolutely. Send us an email, or you can comment on the YouTube channel if you're watching there. Absolutely. Let us know what are your techniques to get into the flow or to get back into the flow. And have you been able to bring those over to life? Do you keep a gratitude journal? Should we have a mountain bike gratitude journal in the car? Maybe before you get to the trailhead, you open it up, you write down a couple things. When you get back in the car, you write down a couple things. That might be kind of cool. I don't know. It's probably too much work and it would get all sweaty and gross, but let's be positive.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, but stacking wins. I think you're right that, who you're riding with also can help a lot. If you're riding by yourself, that can be hard. It can be hard to kind of pull yourself out of a funk, and really be grateful for what you're able to do. But if you are riding with other people, it makes a huge difference. I know both Dan and Stick and countless other riders that I've ridden with have all been really encouraging, and that makes a huge difference when you're feeling down and out and someone's like, nah, dude, you're a great rider. And you just did that amazingly. And you're just like, I did? Oh, okay. And then suddenly a smile does come onto your face. And then now you're stacking. That's a small win, but you stack that one on top of another one. Before you know it, you're having a great time, and I do think, I mean, if we're talking about being grateful, like I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have friends that know me well enough to be able to encourage me in the right ways and push me in the right directions, to pursue my passions. That's a luxury that I'm not sure a lot of people have. And I am truly grateful for the friends that I do have, and my dad, especially. Shout out to my dad, who is behind the scenes, running this podcast for us. And super huge thank you to my dad.
Yes. Thanks to Sage's dad as well. Sage's dad is awesome. I second all of that. And I think that there's a shift, right, where we get it externally and then we're able to give it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe where the magic happens, where the encouragement is like, yeah, I got this. And maybe I fell, or maybe I missed a few features in a row, but I can do this. And I feel good. I feel good about myself, and I'm still having fun, and you're able to just kind of let it go. We throw that judgment out to other riders And anytime that you find yourself judging another rider, I think you can just shift that by complimenting them instead.
Yeah.
And anytime you find yourself judging yourself, because if we're judging other riders, let's be honest, we're being 100 times harder on ourselves. Like those judgments, if you got judgment brain going, that brain is the hardest on yourself. And same thing. When you start feeling yourself judging yourself, that sounded very Austin Powers. Allow myself to introduce myself. Allow myself to judge myself. When you start noticing the judging thoughts, start complimenting yourself. Boy, wouldn't that be weird? I mean, we're so used to being, I don't know about you, but my thoughts are usually not that nice. To actually like consciously start complimenting yourself. I'm good at riding tech. I'm a good jumper. I'm a strong rider. I'm fit. Man, that could be a game changer. And then you can take that into your life when you're giving yourself a hard time. Just notice it. We're not our thoughts. I think that's the main thing, is that we're not our thoughts. We're more than that. And so when you notice the judgy thought, that's who you actually are. You're the noticer. So I'm the noticer. I can see like a superhero with a big N on their chest. Like, that's a fairly lame superhero, noticing things. But it would be a superpower if you could turn those thoughts off, man. I mean, that's a happy life, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what a great superpower.
Yeah. So let us know, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com. Let us know what you're doing to turn off the negative thoughts or get out of your head or get back into your flow state. Would love to hear some feedback. Mountain bike gratitude of the week. You mentioned your friends, and what I want to throw out is the local bike shop. If you have a good local bike shop, I'm so grateful. My local bike shop is Keswick Cycles in Paoli. There's a couple of them in the Philly area, but these guys are so good to me. If you're into bikes and you're in there enough, you get to know the mechanics and some of the sales guys. You can go in, you can talk bikes, you can talk about upgrades, and I'm just so grateful to have a shop here in Paoli. I also have a shop in Arizona that I go to with Action Ride Shop, and those guys are awesome. The mechanics are very capable, and the vibe in the shop is awesome. They're mountain bikers, and so they're always happy and stoked to talk bikes and talk trails, and that's what you want in a local bike shop, and in life and friends.
Well said, Danny.
Yeah. So I think that's good for this week. Feeling good about the episode. I think we got into a lot. Yeah, trusting our skills, keeping our eyes up, and then and not getting too worried about the next feature on the trail or the next feature in life. Going with the flow, staying in the moment, and when that drop gets here that you're worried about, then you'll deal with it when it gets here. But until then, let it go. Let it go. Let's flow. Let's flow on the trails, and let's flow in life. Let's have a good time. If you want to comment on anything that we talked about, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Comment on the YouTube video if you're watching there. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And certainly like or review and give us a nice 5-star review on your podcast player, wherever you're listening. We appreciate your listening. We have gratitude towards you for listening. Hopefully that you had some fun, you had some laughs this episode. Get out there, ride, laugh, have fun, be stoked. We'll talk to you later.
See y'all.